far off Ecuador, from the northwest corner of Ecuador in a province called Esmeraldas, and it involves a snake and a bear. It was the last day of an 18-day trip to Ecuador in which I saw 461 species of bird. But today was going to be somewhat special, or at least we hoped, as we were going in search of a spectacled bear, which we had heard was inhabiting the cloud forest near a place called Maki Pucuna Lodge, which is where we were staying on my last day in Ecuador. We spoke to a local guide there called Arsenio, who said, well, he didn't think we had much luck in finding a bear because they'd been here 2 weeks earlier, but they'd all disappeared now. But Dushan and myself, who was my bird guide, decided we would go and look for the bear. So the next morning we met Arsenio at 9:30, and with Rolando, our driver, we all piled into the pickup truck and went high up into the cloud forest on a dirt road. We must have driven for about half an hour. Finally we came to a stop with the cloud forest on our right hand side and a steep valley also to our right hand side. We got out of the pickup and wandered down the road, splitting up. I wandered off with Arsenio. Dushan, my bird guide, was about 100 metres back, and Rolando was keeping an eye on the pickup and the cameras. I was just wandering along with Arsenio, chatting away in English, as his English was very good, and he grabbed my arm. He said, Ewan, stop, stop. I said, why? I can hear twigs, I can hear branches cracking. So we stopped, we stood in silence and we waited. And sure enough, we could hear twigs and breaking branches down in the valley. It's a bear, it must be a bear. Hold on there, I'm going down. You wait there, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And with that, Arsenio disappeared over the lip of the valley and went crashing off down into the jungle to see if he could find the bear. I stood quietly waiting for Arsenio to come back. I didn't say anything to Dushan or Rolando in case it was a false alarm. But 10 minutes later, Arsenio appeared back over the lip of the valley. His hair was plastered to his forehead, twigs, leaves, you name it, was stuck to his clothing, and a huge beam on his head. A bear, I found a bear. Come quickly. I said to Arsenio, hold on. So I then shouted, Dushan, bear! Dushan shouted to Rolando, bear, bring the cameras. Rolando started running down towards us. No, go back. Rolando ran back to the vehicle and then very sensibly drove the vehicle down to us containing the cameras. We grabbed the cameras and then all four of us literally leapt over the edge of the valley and started descending at a rapid pace down through virgin tropical rainforest. The adrenaline was running fast. There was a bear and we wanted to see it. Arsenio, there was no sign of him. He'd gone. We could hear him crashing through the foliage, and we were basically following the track he'd made through this impenetrable, or seemingly so, jungle. We carried on for about 100, 200 metres, and then I slipped and fell. God, it hurt, but I was all right. Dushan picked me up and suggested he maybe go in front and I follow him. This seemed like a good idea to me. Then, about 10 or 20 seconds later, Dushan went several shades of whiter, screeched to a halt and screamed, stop, everybody stop, whatever you do, don't move. What is it, Dushan? What's the problem? He was pointing and visibly shaking. He was pointing at the ground. I could see nothing. Look, can't you see it? I said, no, I can't see it. What is it? He said, it's a snake, a bloody great snake. Where? And he pointed on the ground and I still couldn't see it. So he got out the laser which we use for identifying birds up in the trees. He pointed the laser and there it was, a huge verdelance, probably the most poisonous snake in Ecuador, coiled up right where I would have stood. My blood ran cold as I contemplated how close I had to come to death. If I had not changed places with Dushan 10-20 seconds earlier and Dushan had not seen the snake, I would have trodden on the snake would have bitten me, and I would have had venom being pumped around my veins at a rapid rate, and I would have had no chance of making it to a hospital. How Arsenio missed the snake we couldn't work out. the only thing we could think of is, as he hurtled down the slope, he must have stepped right over the snake, and the snake had never moved. We shouted to Arsenio about the snake. "Arsenio, there's a bloody snake up here." Arsenio shouted back, "Well, there's a bloody bear up a tree here. I can't leave the tree, because if I leave the tree, the bear will come down and run off." We shouted back, "You stay there, Arsenio, don't move. Keep the bear up the tree." Dushan said, "We can't go on. The snake's right in our path." I said, "Well, why don't we go round the snake?" So Dushan sort of looked at me, he said, "Well, I suppose we can." We looked at the vegetation, which was virtually impenetrable. Then Rolando decided he was going to take the initiative, piled off into the branches, snapping branches, breaking twigs, leaves, you name it, and beating a path round the damn snake. We followed, and eventually we came to a beaming, smiling Arsenio, who just pointed upwards. We looked up, and there was a spectacled bear at the top of the tree, looking down at us. To say he wasn't happy was to put it mildly. He was sort of growling and making strange noises and looking at us all the time. We got the cameras out and just started taking pictures. It was chaotic, standing on a wet, slippery slope in a cloud forest in Ecuador with a camera pointing up at the backside of a bear is not an everyday occurrence. All of this seemed to take forever, but in fact it was just passing in a matter of moments. I was standing there taking photos, and yet again I lost my footing, collapsed to the floor on my back, but just lay there still taking photos, as the bear, visibly upset at our presence, now decided he was going to come down the tree. Using his huge claws like crampons, slowly started to lower himself down the tree, all the while continually growling and sort of looking at us over his shoulder as he slowly and surely descended the tree. "Oh God, Dushan, what do we do now?" I cried. Dushan said, "Don't worry, the bear's more frightened of us than he is of him." Slowly, ever so slowly, the bear edged down the tree, looking over his shoulder at us and just checking out exactly what we were doing. Closer and closer he came. I was still photographing, and I assumed he was that close because I was looking through a telephoto lens. I lowered the lens and realised the bear must have been a maximum of about 12 feet from us. When he got to about 9 feet from the ground, he tensed and flung himself off the tree and landed with a huge whoomph on the ground, and the last we saw of him was a huge black bottom disappearing into the vegetation at a very high speed. Well, we all just stood there, absolutely elated. We had seen a bear, a spectacled bear, very rare and very unusual. High fives all round. Well done, Arsenio. Here's $20. A grin the size of Ecuador spread across his face, and we slowly made our way back up the side of the valley. And that's my tale from Ecuador. So I'm really happy to be able to celebrate Christmas with my family and wish you all a happy Christmas and a great New Year.